I will start with my opening remarks about town meeting. I know you've all heard this, or most of you had, but it's worth listening to. To make a motion or speak to an issue, please raise your hand to be recognized by the moderator. Wait for the microphone, then stand and state your name so that we know who you are and so the minutes will be accurate. Penny's taking the minutes. Motions cannot be made while someone else has the floor. A motion can be amended, and an amendment can be amended, but there can be no third amendment as it would be too confusing. If you feel that a voice vote is not clear, you may call for a division, meaning that you'll be asked to raise your hands or stand to be counted and have your voter cards ready to show. If you feel that a vote requires a paper ballot, 7 voters must agree with you, or a total of 7 voters have to request a paper ballot. Then we will line up to vote with our voter cards, and the vote will be tallied by the Board of Civil Authority. Now here's the thing I messed up on last year. If you want to cease debate, you can call the question, but to do that, you have to raise your hand, wait until everyone ahead of you has spoken, and then you can call the question. And if there's a second and 2/3 of the body decides to cease debate and vote, we will do so. And you cannot call the question at the end of your remarks. Town meeting is conducted to Robert's Rule of Order, although there are areas in the Vermont statutes which supersede Robert's. Robert suggests that no voter be recognized to speak a third time on an issue until others who wish to speak for the first time are given a chance to do so. This suggestion may be relaxed at times if there is a good discussion going. In order to move things along, I may sometimes use the phrase, "if there is no objection," or "with your permission," as in, if there is no objection, we will suspend the rules in order to allow a non-voter to speak. If any of you call out objection, I will immediately call for the 2/3 vote necessary to suspend the rules. Speakers must be Guilford registered voters unless we suspend the rules. Points of order may be called out for clarification from the moderator or to explain my procedure. And of course, you may appeal any decision I make if you have a second. If challenged, I will attempt to explain my decision. If you are not happy with my explanation, you can call for a vote, and the body will overrule, or your body can overrule my decision with a simple majority. This meeting is being recorded by BCTV, and it will be available to watch later this week. When you speak, please state your name clearly into the microphone so the people in the room and viewers watching the meeting later can hear you and know who you are. And finally, I ask that when you speak, please address your comments to me and then not to someone who just spoke before you. And with that, we will start. Article 1, to elect a moderator for the coming year. Do I hear a motion? Richard Bazansky. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Did you get that second? Okay, Rick Zamor has been nominated to be your moderator for the coming year. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we will close the nominations and vote on Rick Zamor as your moderator. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And it appears that the ayes have carried the vote. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be up here. Article 2, to hear the report of the town auditors. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Okay. Second? Any discussion? Oh, Kathy's checking someone in. Kathy, did you want to discuss the town report, or are you okay with it? She's got some corrections. Can Kathy get a mic? That is Macy.
Only 3 this year. On page 9, the auditor's funds. On page 9, the auditor's funds, there should be 0 in auditor training. Oops. And there should be $12,100 in professional audit.
This is page 9.
Professional audit should be $12,100 for the budget. For actual, it's for fiscal 19, actual, sorry. That makes it, the total figure, a little more logical to the budgeted figure for next year. On page 11, the SBED fiscal 19 actual was 0, not 6,000. SEVEDS. And we really apologize. We didn't list 2 of the deaths this year. On page 58, we want to add John Dixon, who was 89 years old, and Barbara Fernando, who is 79 years old. Other than that, we request you accept the auditor's report as written, or as corrected.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions or comments? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the report? Second? All those in favor of accepting the auditor's report, please state aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. And you have accepted the auditor's report. To hear the report of the library trustees, do I hear a motion? Can
Thank you. I'd like to move that the library present its report.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So it's...
No discussion?
Well, don't we have to approve it and then I talk?
Oh, okay. You want to approve it first?
I mean,
what if we don't want to approve it after we hear from you?
No, approve me talking. I don't know. I'm mixed up.
No, you can go ahead and talk.
Okay, so I'm all mixed up. Okay, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Laura Lawson-Tucker. I'm on the Library Trustees Board. And I just want to point out a few things. Everyone has, hopefully, I know some people didn't get the report, page 25. So you can read this, of course. I just want to point out a few things. The first thing I want to say is I'm really proud of our library. Trustees, Mimi's over here. Other trustees, can you stand up or wave your arms? Another trustee, there's John, here's Sandra. Yeah. And I'm going to get to the friends in a moment. What I'm really proud of is that our town has clearly made a statement, a strong statement, that our town values the library as a place for people to gather, a place for people to get information, whether it's online or through books, a place for people to have meetings, to have book groups, for children to come for story time. And our town has made a clear statement that we are part of the budget And I want to, and also our annual fund drive that you get in the mail. We have great response from that. So I want to thank everyone for being so supportive of your library in our wonderful town. So this is first a great big thank you to everyone's support of our library. Secondly, Kathy and Leah. Is Leah in the room? Okay, Leah's out in the hallway, probably. Oh, there's Leah, yes. So Leah, stand up again, stand up again. And Kathy, I know you're busy. There's Kathy over there. We have great leadership with Kathy and Leah, so I wanted to appreciate Kathy and Leah. And I just want to point out a couple things. One is, during the fiscal year that we've just ended, we circulated 5,000 books. That's really impressive, really impressive. And 298 children, parents came to 49 story times. Another pretty impressive figure. And 50 programs in our little town, 50 programs were sponsored. And 591 town residents came to the library during the fiscal year. So pretty awesome, very active and engaged place to come to. I want to just say to everyone that we're super committed to be making information available so anyone can sit in the driveway of the library in your car and access through internet, wireless internet from the library, the information that you want, and in particular, go online and get any book or any digital book that you would so desire. So that's, in other words, we have a library 24/7. So pretty amazing, I think. And we want to thank volunteers. I've got one right here, Karen. We have lots of volunteers who help us keep our expenditures down, which we are super appreciative of. And we have volunteers that contribute at least 19 hours of volunteer time per week. So that's pretty impressive. And related to that, Lynn, will you stand up? This is Lynn Green, and she is our stalwart, amazing, tireless, she doesn't feel tireless right now, tireless president of the Friends group. And we, you've probably noticed this sweet little Guilford Free little library by the store. That's one of Lynn's projects. We've had grown-up story times at the Broadbrook Community Center. We've had about 3 or 4? 4 of those. So Lynn's at the helm. She would welcome more volunteers to join her as a friend of the library. The time commitment is minimal, and it's a great group of people. So I think that's what I want to say, and thank you everyone for your fabulous support of the library.
Thank you, Laura. Can we have a motion to accept the report of the library, unless there's more discussion? A second. All those in favor of accepting the library report signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have accepted the library report. At this moment, I would like to invite, with your permission, invite Sarah Coffey up to address the group. She's got a special award to present, and it's going to make us all very happy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Sarah Coffey. I'm honored to be your state rep, serving under the Golden Dome in Montpelier. And later, when we're joined by Senator Becca Balint, I'll say a few words to address the body here. But I wanted to say one of the best things that I get to do up in Montpelier is to shine a light on some of the amazing people and work that's happening in Windham County. And I do that in a number of ways. I invite people to come up to give devotionals at the State House. Last year we had Veranda Porsche on St. Valentine's Day, and this year we had Lisa Sparrow come up and give a devotional last week. We get Windham County artists to perform on Farmers Night, and of course I do my best to carry your voice and your issues to Montpelier. But today it's really, I'm very excited. We know that the hard work in our communities is only made possible with, we know the folks who work in our town offices and who take care of our roads and our schools, but it's also, we're really fueled on volunteer power. And so I wanted to, this year I'm going to read a joint resolution that we prepared in honor of Herb Meyer, who, can we give Herb a round? And this is a bit of a surprise for Herb, so he did not know this coming in when he came in to vote this morning. So, let me just read. So this is a concurrent House resolution. The House concurrent resolution honoring Herb Meyer for his community leadership in the towns of Guilford and Vernon, offered by Representative Coffey of Guilford. Whereas, starting with his U.S. military service during the Korean War, Herb Meyer has exemplified the best attributes of civic leadership. And whereas in the town of Vernon, he was employed as a school custodian and as the local police chief, overseeing the municipality's public safety. And whereas in the town of Guilford, Herb Meyer has served as a board member of the Friends of Algiers Village, a nonprofit organization focused on restoring key historic buildings in the village, chaired the Algiers Fire District, and has been the town's coordinator of emergency management. And whereas in 2007, the town of Guilford honored Herb Meyer as its Citizen of the Year, and whereas Herb Meyer has completed half a century teaching hunter safety classes and remains civically active, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate and the House of Representatives that the General Assembly honors Herb Meyer for his community leadership in the towns of Vernon and Guilford, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed or hand deliver a copy of this resolution to Herb Meyer. So.
Thank you, Herb, and thank you, Sarah. Okay, Article 4. We have several officers to elect, including trustee of public funds, grand jurors, library trustee, and cemetery commissioner. We'll start with the trustee of public funds. At this time, the term of Penny Marine is expiring. Do I hear a nomination for trustee of public funds? Penny Marine has been nominated. Is there a second? Al Franklin. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we will vote on Penny Marine as trustee of public funds. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. And Penny, you are the trustee of public funds. Yeah. Grand jurors. At this time, the terms of Jamie Durham and Don McLean are expiring. Do I hear nominations for grand jurors?
I nominate Don McLean and Jamie Durham.
We've had a nomination for Don McLean and Jamie Durham.
Second.
Second. Any other nominations? Okay, let's vote on whether to elect Don McLean and Jamie Durham as grand jurors. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have elected Don McLean and Jamie Durham. And I'm assuming they're willing to serve. If not, too bad. Library trustee. At this time, the term of Carol Schnabel is expiring. Do I hear a nomination for new library trustee? John. Okay, I'm not going to try and repeat that because I couldn't hear you, but maybe you can do that with the mic.
Mika Foktopoulos-Boykoff.
Okay. Mika Foktopoulos-Boykoff has been nominated as your new library trustee. Are there any other nominations? Yes.
I wish to re-nominate Carol Schnabel if she'll take the job.
We use the microphone.
Yeah, can we use the mic? And identify yourself, please.
I'm Tim Harris, and I'd like to nominate Carol to continue if she's willing.
There's a second? Okay, Cindy. Okay, yeah, Laura can speak to that. Carol is in the room. She's not standing up. She's not waving her arms. Yes, Carol. No, she says no. She's shaking her head.
I know that Carol has resigned. Can we use the microphone?
As the chair of the library board, Carol has very graciously served for many, many years, and she shared with the board a while ago that this was the end of her service. So thank you for renominating her. I'm sure you feel honored. But I think Carol declines. Thank you.
Okay, any other nominations? Okay. Okay, hearing none, we will vote on Mika. I've forgotten your last. Boykoff. Okay, thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, and Mika, at some point, Penny needs to know how to spell your name. What? Oh, and then now here's something from Richard Wazansky.
Hi, I'm Richard Wazansky.
You use the mic.
Speaking of Carol Schnabel, I'd like us all to celebrate Carol and the years of service, really dedicated, committed service that Carol Schnabel has put into making our library the wonderful Guilford jewel that it is. Carol's tireless work as a treasurer for many years of the library and as a trustee for many, many terms. I can't even count how many terms. And no wonder that she has finally resigned. But she's done a stunning job. And in addition to her work with books and other library matters, Carol is one of the most fabulous bakers of Linzer, torts, and other Viennese pastries. I'm sure that if there were a competition in Guilford, that Carol might be one of the winners of that. So please join me in celebrating Carol and her volunteer work. Thank you, Carol.
Is that? Sure, okay. We've had a request that when you speak, use the microphone, say who you are and what part of town you live in. It's a big town. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Carol. Cemetery Commissioner. At this time, the term of Sean Murphy is expiring. Do I hear a nomination for a replacement for Sean as Cemetery Commissioner? Miranda.
I nominate Sean Murphy.
Is there a second? Yes. Okay, Linda. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we will vote on Sean Murphy as Cemetery Commissioner. Oh, sorry.
Andy Locke. Hello. Nominate Hannah Jenkins.
Okay, Hannah Jenkins has been nominated. Does this make it a contest, or can you have two? Is-
Sean Murphy. Actually, I would be happy, actually I wouldn't be happy to be off the commission because I've enjoyed it for so many years. But the WSESD is sort of a full-time commitment, and I haven't been able to really devote the time that I should this year to the Cemetery Commission. So I think it's great that somebody else is.
So are you withdrawing your nomination?
I would like to withdraw my nomination.
Okay, Sean has withdrawn his nomination for Cemetery Commissioner. So, Hannah, we have Hannah Jenkins. Are there any other nominees? Seeing none, we will vote on Hannah Jenkins as Cemetery Commissioner. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have elected Hannah Jenkins. Article 5, do I hear a motion?
Good morning. My name is Gordon Little. I'm a member of the Select Board. I live on Collier Road in West Guilford. Shall the town vote to approve highway fund expenditures in the amount of $1,020,911 for fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources?
Do I hear a second? Got that?
Rick, may I just address a couple things with that?
Sure. Let me just. Legally, I've got to repeat the article, and then it's on the floor, and then we can discuss it. Shall the town vote to approve highway fund expenditures in the amount of $1,020,911 for fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So I just wanted to highlight a few areas. It is a slight increase over last year. We had a slight increase in wages. There was a slight increase in benefits due to an additional employee. There were increased tree removal due to the emerald ash borer, which has not been seen yet in Guilford, but the ash trees are trying to be dealt with in an early fashion. And an increase in sand due to needs that we had, as well as rising costs.
Any discussion? Yes, Jethro.
Jethro Eaton, Johnson Pasture Drive. Are we getting any funding for tree removal for the emerald ash borer? Is there going to be any help from the state for dealing with that?
Linda.
Unfortunately, there is no help from the state or federal sources for tree removal. And we've been working, I'll reporting later, but the Conservation Commission has been working proactively with the town highway crew to anticipate some pretty significant expenses in the future. But there is, at this time, no external funding for tree removal. Luckily for us, Green Mountain Power is doing some tree removal. You've noticed along the roads, which is going to take care of some of it, but there's also been an increase in your electric bill. There's a line item that covers their expenses.
Miranda?
I'm glad that you brought up the emerald ash tree borer. I think it's an opportunity for our town to organize really road by road with your neighbors to see who burns wood in your neighborhood. And, you know, clearly the town is going to be needing to deal with the trees that are in the town's right-of-way. But this is something that townspeople can also talk to their neighbors about to help with our response.
Other discussion? Yes.
Tim Harris, Green River Road. I'm thoroughly confused, though. The budget here is for $1,020,000, yet when you turn to the page which shows the breakdown of expenses, it's $971,000 or thereabouts. I don't see where, and also the revenue, there's a disjunct between the revenue and the expenses. The revenue is much lower than the expenses. Maybe we could have a clarification on those questions?
Could we, we need the reference again.
Okay, can you reference the page numbers, Tim?
Pages 11, 12, and 13.
Okay, specifically, what was the question in terms of the expenses? I didn't catch where.
I noted that the expenses shown on page 13 are $997,000, yet the budget is for $1,020,000. Also, the other one I wanted clarification on was the difference between revenue, which is shown as $976,000, as opposed to expenses of $997,000. Where is the difference going to come from? These are clarification questions. I'm sure there's good explanations.
Yeah. You have to suspend the rules because I'm not a resident of town.
Oh.
Could we suspend the rules?
Yeah, can we, with your permission, we'll suspend the rules and allow Peter Root, our town administrator, to speak?
Okay.
Is there no objection?
Why don't you come up here?
So the amount under expenses, so as I understand it, you're asking two different questions, sir? So I'm just asking for clarification again. So one is the total expenses on page 13. So the amount on the article references the entire amount, including revenues that the town will receive from the state. For some expenses and other sources.
Huh? Tim Harris again. I don't follow that at all. I mean, in one place you show the expenses at $997,000, and so why are you asking for $1,020,000 in approval for the entire budget? And the second question, the revenue that you showed, it was less than the expenses, and where would the difference come from? I assume that there's some other source of funds that's not listed here under revenue.
Now, you're raising a very good question, and we will get to the bottom of it.
So, sorry, I'm just a little nervous at the moment.
No, that's okay.
All right, so this number.
If you need time to figure this out, maybe we can come back to Article 5.
Sorry, I need that one. Yeah.
Why don't we move on to 6 and see if that one.
If there's no objection, we will put Article 5 into hiatus and come back to it later once the Select Board is ready to answer Tim's questions.
Do you need a pen?
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan Zambruski, live here in Guilford Center. We have an employee, Alan Belwell, is going to be retiring in the end of the month. And I'd just like to say thank you for his 25 years of service, and he needs an applause.
Aaron Belville. Wait, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that. Can you give that man a microphone?
Yeah, I wish he hadn't done it, but I kind of figured he would. I'm not going away. They said I'd come in and work part-time. It makes me happy to do that. I really don't want to leave, but it's time for somebody else to learn it. So I'm not going away. And it's been an honor and a privilege to work for you people. And I've really enjoyed it, most of the time. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Macy, thank you.
Lucy Sparblase, East Mountain Road. I would like to thank the road crew. It's been a very challenging winter. There's been a lot of rain on top of snow and a lot of ice. And my road has never been impassable. So I would thank the road crew for all of their hard work in the middle of the night, especially.
I think we all would. Okay, they're still scratching their heads, so let's move on to Article 6. Do I hear a motion?
Richard Wazansky, Guilford Select Board from Packle Corners Road. Article 6. Shall the town vote to approve general fund expenditures in the amount of $855,311 for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources?
Do I hear a second? You get that? Who is the second?
And may I speak to that?
Okay. Sandra. One sec. So before we begin discussion, I need to repeat the article. Shall the town vote to approve general fund expenditures in the amount of $855,311 for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources? Richard.
Just a few comments about this article. The town's general budget for the coming fiscal year is essentially level funded. However, the Select Board is pleased to note that there is an overall decrease in taxes this year due to the fire department bond being paid off. Yippee. Most of the increases are in the following areas: minor increase in wages, minor increases in a variety of miscellaneous expenses, which include tech fees, office supplies, software licensing, and liability insurance. And there is an increase in the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department appropriations request of $837. However, there are decreases in the following areas: election tech support, lister expenses and wages, law enforcement, unfortunately, due to not having a constable or dog officer, and if anyone is interested in those positions, we're recruiting, and the fire department bond, which is minus $53,000 because it's been paid off. Also of note, HCRS unfortunately did not successfully get the required signatures required to be on the warning, so the expense for that is taken off.
Other questions or comments on the general fund?
Thank you. Pat Bew from Kirchheimer Drive. Pat Bew, Kirchheimer Drive. Perhaps I've solved the math mystery. It seems on page 11 of the general expenses that the budget was over $1.1 million, and yet you're asking for $885,000. Might that math work to find the missing money in the other side here?
So are you talking about the highway fund now or the general fund?
General fund.
General fund.
I'm seeing a budget of over $1 million, but the article is asking for $885,000.
Oh, so
Suspend so that Peter could.
sure. With your permission, we'll again suspend the rules to allow Peter Rude to speak.
To answer Pat's question, the reason that amount is different is because that amount has a reduction of the special articles from the warning subtracted from it, because you have to vote on those separately.
Other questions or comments on the general fund?
Special articles. Barbara Olds Drive. Barbara Olds Drive. The special articles are only 24,000. That doesn't come down to the 800 and something.
Includes the fire department? As well as Guilford Cares. Wyndham Regional Commission.
Thank you. Kate, Article 7 through 11.
Article 7 through 11.
Does that bring it down to the 800? I suggest that it gets reported a little differently another year so that is seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, you know, maybe in the town report, highlight the figure that we're going to be voting on in the article for both the general and the highway funds, so it really stands out, and then it's easier for people to figure out how you got there. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we will vote on Article 6. Shall the town vote to approve general fund expenditures in the amount of $855,311 for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And you have approved Article 6. Article 7. Shall the town vote to continue membership in the... No. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Bex.
Hi, I'm Michael Becker. I'm on the select board, and I live in Green River. Article 7, shall the town vote to continue membership in the Wyndham Regional Commission and raise and appropriate the sum of $5,041 to defray the town's share of its expense.
Is there a second? Okay, now I will repeat the article, then it will be on the floor. Shall the town vote to continue membership in the Wyndham Regional Commission and raise and appropriate the sum of $5,041 to defray the town's share of its expense? Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we will vote on Article 7. $5,041 for the Wyndham Regional Commission. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have approved Article 7. Article 8. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, you do. Richard Wazansky from Packer Corners Road. Article 8. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,363 for Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SEVEDS?
Do I hear a second? You get that? Okay, motion is, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,363 for Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies? Comments, Richard?
We have a representative from SEVIDS to speak with us, the program director, Jennifer Stromson.
With your permission, we'll suspend the rules and let Jennifer address the body, if there's no objection. Mike?
Mike? Good morning. Thank you. I'm not reading all of this, but I annotated my town report. Mr. Rosansky asked that I be, I think, compelling and specific, so I'll do my best. Thank you. I do urge you to read the town report and our annual report. I think it's awesome. I write it, but I try to make it better every year. I hope I'm improving based on your feedback. I'm going to add detail about your neighbors, the people you care about most, in a moment. I want to make a few big picture points. People think we work for businesses, work for people. We are worried about good jobs and wages. We invest in training, people having a chance to own a business and build a life here. So we invest in that, and we need municipal investment to do that. We don't have the same state and federal funding streams that some other nonprofits do. So we have to get some money and go out and use it to get other money, and that's how our business works. We focus on the future. It's fun to come to Guilford, where I see a lot of the future. Not true in every town, unfortunately. Rural America's future is really challenged. Guilford is a little bit exceptional, but in general, Vermont's not beating that. And as goes the region, so will go every town. I don't know what's going to become of Southern Vermont and the greater region if we don't have opportunity here. I don't know what's going to keep young people here if we don't have jobs where people can afford to raise a family and buy homes and things like that. So I want to answer one specific question that we've heard at information sessions. It's kind of near and dear to our heart, which is, why do you have two organizations? Why is it so complicated? I will say that we are one of 12 economic development agencies that serve the 12 regions of Vermont. We are more complicated. Every other one has one board, one organization, generally one person, and they do about 1/10 of the work that we do. We have BDCC as our main board. They are conservative and careful, and they make sure we can pass crazy audits. The SEVIDS board is the grassroots board that pulls us forward and says, that's not enough. Let's do more stuff. Let's do a plan. Let's try doing workforce. Let's do a whole bunch of other things that other regions aren't doing. And if you think it's complicated, you should be in my job. It makes my job very complicated. It also makes us do cool stuff and try hard things. And we do a lot, and I'm really proud of it. And our programs are held up as models by state and federal agencies because we are trying to beat back the sort of trends. So I'm going to get specific. In your town report, we talk about the new Pipelines and Pathways program in all 4 Windham high schools. We leverage town funding to start stuff in high schools. We went out and raised money from outside to bring money. There are 76 kids at BUHS from Guilford. There are 31 at the Windham Career Center. We do the sophomore summit every year that brings every high school sophomore to a day-long thing where they're exposed to multiple professional pathways. They get to do hands-on learning. We have been doing intensive career prep polish with the juniors and seniors in BUHS, so all of them will have that by the end of next year, and we'll be doing with all of the students at the Career Center. We actually kind of started at the Career Center. We're training the teachers. What that means is we're spending weeks teaching kids how to present themselves professionally. We have the owner of the consignment store in Brattleboro coming in and help them learn how to inexpensively dress for interviews, job interviews, college interviews, how to present themselves. And then we bring in community members, if anybody wants to volunteer, to do mock interviews with those kids so that by the end of that time, they start off unable to sort of look us in the eye, shake hands, do that. And by the end, they're able to really present their best selves. That's exciting. We're going to make sure every kid has that. You all hear about young professionals this time of year because there's the gala. I want you to be clear that the young professionals are not about parties. There are 130 members. 7 of them live in Guilford. Taylor Franklin is on the advisory committee. They welcome every young person who comes to this region that finds their way there. They run tax prep. They run home buying workshops. They are incredible. They are the best young professionals organization and the biggest outside of Rutland and Chittenden County. We run paid internships. For the last 3 years, I have taken a Pasha for my like Guilford kid. We're out of Pashas. They've aged out of our internship program basically, so if there are any more Guilford kids, but we place 15 or 25 students, and it is a way for us to keep people in the region and to take some of those college kids who come to this region and introduce them to a career here. I just placed a Marlboro, we had placed a Marlboro kid at Chroma Technology, and he was just offered a real job. So he's moving back from his parents in Ohio to come live in this region. That to us is a giant win, and that's only one, but it's a whole person and their entire life, and each one really matters. We are regional. We worked with employers that employ 25% of the people in this region, and you know, today as I drove here, I watched a lot of people driving to work, so they're not able to be here. They're at work. I don't have data from every employer that we work with, but a few of them gave me some numbers. Long Falls Paperboard, which we saved last year, employs 2 people from Guilford. Omega Optical has 5 Guilford employees. Commonwealth Dairy over there has employed 35 people from this town since we helped them start, and we work with all these companies all the time. We also work with tiny companies, so this is really where the rubber hits the road. We have a lot of aging entrepreneurs in this area, and so we are working with a couple right now on succession planning. I will get back to writing some funding applications to do a lot more of this, because frankly, we're panicked about the number of entrepreneurs who need to retire, need to be able to do that successfully. Prolingua Publishers, Chaiwala, those are Guilford people. There are tenants. We also work with them on succession, and I hope we can help them do that really successfully. Michael Knapp, Green River Software, I know you've heard me mention him before, but I helped him recruit 2 people this year to his company, and that's huge because that's the kind of company we need more of. Michael Hayden, who's a resident, he's a firefighter. He purchased Outer Limits with our help through a USDA loan that we run, and got technical assistance. Cash value, I think, more than what the town contributed 2 years ago. So if you want to know how you got your dollars back, you're there. So that's a big deal. You know, those are programs that wouldn't exist if we didn't go out and get those dollars or raise the money to have staff to give technical assistance. Last but not least, Guilford's really active on broadband, thank heavens. We are finally at a point where there's some movement, thanks to Representative Sibilia and some of the other legislators, where there's CUD legislation and funding. We worked on that for 3.5 years, and we were a big part of convening every year at a connectivity summit and advocating and making the state listen that there needs to be more capacity and technical assistance. And now the regional commission can come in with some funding and help you get to the next step. We are committed to this in the long term. We partner with the regional commission. People ask all the time why we ask for more money than them. I think they don't ask for enough money is my answer to that. They are underfunded for the work that they do. And finally, I will end by saying we do a ton of other things for our communities that you guys participate in, grant writing workshops. We're doing a project stewardship conference on March 27th that your own Mr. Moderator will be presenting on the Broadbrook Range. It's a peer learning thing. What we find is that towns learn from each other about how to do things well or how to avoid things that didn't go well. And so we are running these convenings kind of every 90 to 120 days to get folks together, because frankly, most towns aren't where you are. But hopefully we offer some value in that too for you as well. I'm here to answer questions. Thank you. It's nice to be back here. 2 years ago, I didn't need glasses to do this. I just want to point that out.
Al.
I'm Al Franklin, and I was just, you mentioned broadband is one of the great things you were doing. Is that something that's going to cover the town, or is it just going to cover what the you can get on the cell towers now? Because there's a lot of Guilford that's not even connected to cell service. Will broadband cure that?
Sarah Coffey's got her hand up, so I think she wants to answer that question. Still can't hear you.
How's that?
Yes.
Better, right? Mr. Franklin, I wanted to respond to the question because I know that while Jen and BDCC have been part of this, there's information on your seats here today, and I'm really excited that Guilford is part of has joined the efforts to be part of the conversation about forming a communication union district. last year in the legislature, after we passed important broadband legislation, it included funding for more infrastructure within the Public Service Department, but also for grants for communities. And we're fortunate that after the end of the session, we got together with folks from BDCC and Wyndham Regional, and Wyndham Regional was willing to, when they applied for some funding, for some technical assistance, to bring the towns together, because we know in our rural communities that we're stronger together. And so to answer your question, the whole point of the funding was to serve underserved communities like many of the parts of Guilford who don't have service, who might have maybe 25. Some folks don't have 4 up and 1 down in Guilford. So it's going to be a community effort, and I'm excited that there are members from the select board. I believe Zahn is part of that effort, and he could manage it, but it will reach our communities. It's going to take some time, and it's really modeled in many ways on the successful work that's been done in central Vermont with EC Fiber, and we have some of their folks here helping us. So I hope that answers the question, and I just wanted to take BDCC off the hook, because this is not totally on their in their realm these days, even though Representative Sibilia, who is also part of BDCC, really was a force in helping us get this legislation through.
Other questions or comments?
Hi, I'm Noreen Woodruff. I live on Merryneck Road. I just wanted to comment that my son was actually part of this sophomore program that went around to the businesses last year. And it's a huge opportunity for these kids to see. And they went to CNS, and you mentioned the 25%. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So he went to these 25% businesses that employ around, and it was huge for him to see the impact of that on a larger scale, because we are such a small community, and that's why I live here. It's why I came back here, and I love it. But there's those missing links that I think they make a big impact. So I just wanted to share that. I think that's important, and I'm rooting for you. So thank you.
Sheila?
Sheila Morse, Melody Hill. I wanted to thank Jen and Sevitz, because I think every single year we've said, what benefit does Guilford get? And this was real clear, really down to people. And I mean, I've been a longtime supporter of Sevitz, but it has been hard to measure. This was very helpful, Jen, so thank you for your presentation.
Other comments? Yes. Macy, we have a, oh, okay. After you, John, there's someone in several rows in front of you that needs the mic, but go ahead.
John Shaw, East Mountain Road. I would like to, I guess, re-ask the question from last year that I feel like was not answered, which is why Sevitz needs to have our money. I think last year that we were actually told that they didn't even need it, that if we didn't fund them, they would still be able to do all their programming. And then now we're told that if we don't fund them, they won't be able to do the programming. So I think this is the kind of confusion that we talked a lot about last year and is coming up again this year. So I'm still opposed to this funding. And I think that we need to hear why they need money, why they need this much money, and there needs to be more transparency about where the money is going, whether the money is going to programming or not programming, which I think might come out of that dual board situation you talked about, and being more complicated than the whole rest of the state. All the other ones are less complicated. So I think we could be less complicated also.
Richard?
Richard Wazansky, Packer Corners Road. I'm a former nonprofit executive, and John's question is a question that many people ask, particularly donors, about nonprofit organizations. And when a nonprofit organization asks for funding, you know that some of it usually goes to program and some of it goes to staffing and administrative overhead. It takes money to run a nonprofit organization. And usually the nonprofit organization, I haven't seen your budget, but the nonprofit organization segments what staff salaries are and what goes to programs. But it's all one organization that needs to exist, needs to have staff, needs to have travel, needs to have lodging for people who are going, traveling perhaps throughout the state. So it's very difficult to segment that with a nonprofit organization. You have to have trust. I have trust in your organization that the organization is being transparent and is not wasting Guilford's dollars frivolously.
Macy, there's this.
Hi, I'm Pat Burke, Maple Hill Drive. Oh, Pat Burke, Maple Hill Drive. Okay. I'm not opposed to helping a nonprofit exist. I just wanted to know, I guess, how it seems like a lot of money when I look down the list of all the nonprofits that we help, and maybe it's their fault for not asking for more money, but it seems it's a lot, $3 a head, and I guess my question is, what other towns do you ask for that money from, and is it the same rate?
With your permission, we'll let Jen answer that question.
Thank you. We ask every town in the county for for $3 for every 27 towns, for $3. We go to every select board and we go to as many meetings as we can. Sometimes 2 in a day. We've already been to a couple. Does that answer all of your question? And why do we ask for more? So if you look at the way the state funds, you're already paying through other taxes, income taxes, fees, things like that, a lot of dollars that go to the state. The state then reallocates funding to different programs. If you look at the proportion that goes to education versus social services versus economic development, we get an order of magnitude or so less, depending on how you look at it, than a lot of the other agencies, the regional agencies that come out. Again, I would not put Regional Planning Commission in that box. So we have almost no baseline funding. So we have $108,000 a year for the Regional Development Corporation. That's like a person, that's like my executive director in his office. And so anything else that we do for programming, we have to go raise the money. And in the world of fundraising, we would never budget or run our thing in a way that where one town not funding us would mean we don't do something next year. We are much more conservative than that, to be honest. But we also leverage BDCC real estate revenue goes into the SEVIDS budget, so we actually put BDCC money into it. And everything that we do with the town money is we basically go out and leverage it. We bring dollars that aren't here from the federal or state government into the region. And most of those dollars that we bring in just wouldn't come here. Other agencies can't or won't do the kind of fundraising that we do. So we're really focused on making your local dollars turn into new dollars from outside. So.
In the back, Sky.
Thank you. Sky Morse, Sweet Pond Road. To me, this is a no-brainer of an investment. Jen already laid out a number of companies in this area where our friends and neighbors here in Guilford are employed, who SEVIDS and BDCC support. The work that the staff at SEVIDS does to support our community and our region is unparalleled across the state. The rural development corporations across the state look to the BDCC as an example of what can be done to support a local economy. And to not fund this is just shooting ourselves in the foot, in my opinion. every dollar that goes, as Jen just said, every dollar that goes to them is a vote in support of our local economy. And that is a signal to the federal and state funders that we're committed to working to support ourselves and to continue to grow this area. So I just want to add my voice in strong support of this measure.
Bill, up here.
Bill Murray from Weatherhead Hollow Road, and someone asked me to speak, and I said, well, given what happened last year after I spoke, maybe you don't want me to say much. But I did call Jen and spoke with her for quite a while, because I have some of the same concerns about how are we spending the money. But I have to say, I was on Windham Regional Commission for 10 years. I was part of the Vermont State Sustainable Jobs Fund Board for 7 years. And this CEVEDS and BDCC and Windham Regional Commission are so important to this part of the state, because you go to Montpelier and we're sort of forgotten. And the BDCC and CEVEDS and Windham Regional have incredible reputation outside of the area. And that's where the money that we're using for the different funding devices is coming from. They raised $415,924 last year from state and federal funding. And if you don't have a recognized organization that knows how to play the game with all of the funding sources, and the funding sources look to see, do the towns within the region fund this organization? Guilford's benefited tremendously, not just from CEVEDS, but through local efforts to raise money for the Guilford Country Store, the Volunteer Fire Department, the Broadbrook Grange. All of that money comes because people come and see the grantors that we participate and that we cough up our dough to support these things. This is just one of those financial supports that really brings benefits far beyond the $3 a piece that we're all asked to pay for. It would be, like Sky was much more eloquent than I am about it, but it would be really silly not to fund this.
No, John had his hand up. Oh, back here. Jethro, there's a woman behind you who's going to speak first. I'm trying to let people who haven't spoke have a chance.
You're a good runner. You're doing well.
She is a good runner.
Hello, I'm Dana Berry, and I'm from Melody Hill. And last year, I listened very carefully about whether we were going to fund this or not. This year, I'm myself in a different capacity as a member of the CC4G. We are in the process of developing an early childhood education program that will be up and running maybe a year, 4 or 5 months from now. And the mentoring that I have received from BDCC has been just fabulous. It allows us to network with people that we never would have known about. Whether that comes down to actual dollars or not for us at this time, really the biggest agenda item. It is to be able to get out there and let people know what we're doing. As a community, I really hope we decide to support this year. Thank you.
Yeah, Jethro. I would be interested in supporting, but just not so much money. I mean, I think right now where we're at with all these other services that we could save the money, and we could either for ourselves or for supporting other organizations. I mean, I'm not against it in itself, but it just seems like a lot of money.
Can I call the question, please?
Before we call the question, Jethro, did you want to offer an amendment or not? No. Okay.
I motion that we call the question.
I was in line. Okay, but you've spoken, John. There's a guy next to you who would like to speak, and then you can speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Gardner, longtime resident of Guilford. After I retired from American Optical, I went to work for BDCC. I saw firsthand and participated in a number of the programs that they ran. I ran a business plan competition, and we're even helping those people that started businesses continuing today. I think it's an excellent organization. I think the work that they do, okay, is quite amazing. And a community or community area that needs that kind of service, and we do, okay, should expect to pay some amount, and I think the amount is quite reasonable. So I just want to say, as one person that has seen it, you know, for many years at AO, has worked in it for a few years after retirement, and continues to volunteer to help some of those businesses that have been started, I would definitely support funding this amount of money. Thank you.
John, and then if no one else has their hand up, then Richard's going to call the question. Richard, we've got to go through everyone who had their hand up.
John Shaw, East Mountain Road. I wanted to just respond to a couple of things, because Richard, you were responding to me earlier, and you said you hadn't seen their report. But I want to point out that in the report, their annual report, BDCC and CEVEDS have separate budgets. And so when this is the confusion I'm talking about, is all of these programs, which are great programs that people like Sky and Bill and everybody are talking about and people love, they are BDCC programs. And if we are here asked to fund CEVEDS, which is a different organization with a different budget, and that's why I'm trying to talk about following where the money is going. I think I personally am interested in this stuff because I too believe in strengthening our local economy and with community development. And so that's why I'm paying attention to it. But in their budget here, BDCC says their total revenue is over $4 million, which does not seem to jive with what we just heard, where they only have $100,000. They also have a revenue over expenses of $408,000. And so when we hear that they leveraged money to bring $415,000, but they themselves have revenue over expenses $408,000, it, to me, does not mean we need to raise taxes on ourselves to give them more money. So to me, I want to separate out the question of whether the programs are helping people or not with whether we should be funding them. I think that they haven't shown that they need our funding. And they even told us last year, they had a different person here last year, but he said they did not need our funding. Without our funding, these programs would still exist. So this is not about us trying to end these programs. It's not about like killing economic development. It's about whether we want to just give away public funds without the organization being accountable to us.
Okay, the question's been called. It takes a second and a 2/3 vote. Do I hear a second? Okay, it takes a 2/3 vote to cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate on this article signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. It appears that that's 2/3. And you have voted to cease debate on the article. I will read it again and then we'll vote. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,363 for Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Nay. It appears that it has passed. I think you have passed Article 7. Thank you. Oh, sorry, yeah, Article 8. Yeah, you already did. Is the Select Board ready to go back to Article 5?
Okay. So I'm going to try to clarify what happened. First, I want to apologize. There are some incorrect numbers that have been printed in our town report, which were not caught. I'm glad it was caught by you. I mean, it says a lot. But so as a Select Board member, it got by us. And what I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to have Peter explain, is our approved budget. So I'll start with the town article. That is correct. That number is correct, the $1,020,911. What is incorrect is our town book. And what I'm going to have Peter do is just walk us through line by line the inconsistency or incorrections in that, and then we will move from there, I hope.
So with your permission, we'll allow Peter Rude to address the body.
Yep, I will. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm looking at pages 12 and 13 of the town report for those of you who have one with you. As Gordon noted, under the FY21 proposed numbers, some of those that were printed this year were incorrect, and I wanted to address those. For those of you who don't really care about numbers, I apologize. I just want to make this public. So if we start on page 12, under highway expenses for FY21 proposed, the wages general should say $208,835. Under health insurance, yes, I will repeat that, for FY21 proposed for wages general on page 12 should state $208,835. Everyone get that? Okay, for health insurance under FY21 proposed, the number should read $53,045. For dental insurance, it should read $16,000 for FY21. And that's due to a new employee. I'm sorry, you're correct. It's 1,600. It's 1,600. It's 1,600. And then the vision insurance should actually state $275 under FY21 proposed. And then move down towards the bottom of that column for highway expenses. C&S tree removal for FY21 should state $10,000. And then the total for that should be $480,396. So moving on to under FY21 for wages for winter, that should state $135,515. Then under the sand for FY21, it should state $40,000. Everyone following along? So that total should be $210,515. $210,515. Mr. Moderator, a couple people have their hands up.
So are those all the corrections?
No. Do you want me to finish the corrections first?
Yeah, let's finish the corrections.
Okay, on page 13, under small tools and equipment for FY21, the far right-hand column should state $3,500. Under building maintenance, under the same column, it should state $3,000.
Tools with 3,500.
Thank you, Katie. The category is Town Garage on page 13, about 1/3 of the way down. Just to repeat, small tools and equipment should read 3,500. Building maintenance should read 3,000 for a total of 34,500. That total, if you add each category total up, that will equate to $1,020,911.
Okay, questions or comments? Kathy.
As an auditor, I'd like to apologize for not catching that. And I encourage you to elect a new auditor so we can do a better job of proofreading.
And coincidentally, we have a third auditor candidate up for election. Katie. Here's Macy.
Katie Buckley, Fern Drive. So you have a budgeted $44,000 deficit. So.
As soon as this is done, I'm going to address the revenue side.
Okay.
In response to what Katie asked, I just said I was going to let that stop, and then I was going to address the revenue side.
Okay, Katie's question was pointing out that there's a $44,000 deficit between expenses and revenue.
And if you want to be correct, it's actually a $44,105 deficit. So the number on page 11 for taxes general under FY21, it should read $874,461. When you add those numbers together, you'll get $1,020,911.
So Peter, that was taxes general, $874,461. Okay.
$1,020,911. She asked what the total was, and that's $1,020,911.
Other questions or comments? Katie.
Due to the change in the revenue, so it will increase taxes, there was a significant, there was a significant surplus in the highway fund in 2019. I just didn't know if there was a plan on how those funds were to be utilized and if there was any way that was going to be treated.
Peter?
I can speak to that. Good question, Katie. So the funds that were the surplus from the highway fund were dedicated to paving projects in town. We were not able to complete all the paving projects that were intended this year, so as those funds are dedicated for paving, they will be used in the coming year for additional paving projects.
Hi, Noreen from Merryneck Road. I am speaking, into the microphone. I just have a question. So we're losing Alan on the highway patrol, but are we hiring 2 new people? Is that where we're getting the new person? So are we just replacing him, or are we hiring 2 people?
So if I can't explain this correctly, Danny, I know certainly can.
Thank you.
What we did, knowing that Alan was going to retire, at the time we didn't have a firm date, but we knew it was coming soon. We brought another person in to start training with the crew. So we had the additional person last year. As Alan steps away, we are not planning on replacing that body. We're back to a 5-man crew.
Okay. So will that lower the revenue? And is that my understanding? It's going to then lower the revenue of the money that
on the expense side?
The expense side, yes. I'm sorry, not revenue. trying to put some funds back into our town that we're giving away.
Well, I'm thinking about this because there are some other pieces to this equation. What we have planned for the expense side in terms of wages for next year is inclusive of what has planned up until this point. Moving forward to the next year, I can't sit here and definitely say it's going to lower it. I don't think it will increase the wages. If we find that there's a need for some part-time support, yeah, I'll be honest, having a 5-man road crew is pulling our group of guys as thin as we possibly can. If we didn't have the caliber of individuals that work for this town on our road crew, we'd have to have another individual hired. And what
I don't disagree.
What Dan does in terms of forecasting, planning, controlling costs, especially in the area of wages, is it's our hats off to Dan for keeping us to where we literally are in terms of our expenses on our highway road crew. I guess my bigger concern would be when the day comes when Dan decides to step down, and I'm not trying to be a bearer of bad news, but Dan is starting to consider that, and as we move forward, that's a whole, I think, a whole nother discussion that is going to be really tough for this town. Are we going to maintain our roads the way we always have with a new individual who won't be as, Dan's been here for 40 some odd years, and he understands every aspect of this. He controls his budget, as I said, on every aspect of it, and he controls his employees in terms of, overtime and doing the job that is expected, especially during the winter months. So it's a hard question to specifically answer. I would say that wages are going to hold pretty much where they are in terms of our proposed budget for this upcoming year into the future.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to mention the reason why I brought that up was for that reason exactly. I've lived here my entire life, and I know Dan very well, and I know the work that gets done in this town, and I am so proud of that. Knowing that, what would happen when he left? And my husband also does this for work, and he's done this for worked for other towns and contracted for the towns to do the work that would also help this town. It's also an idea, but the point is when we actually need to start giving these guys what they deserve, we're going to be needing to either give less to other places to focus on our roads or just more attendance. This is beautiful. This is the most attendance I've seen in a while. So thank you for listening to me.
Alan, did you have your hand up? Alan? No? Brenda?
Yeah, I think a few people have alluded to it, but this is the work of the road crew is one place where we really see the impact of climate change on our town. All of us experience that just when we walk out our doors. But I remember Dan talking about in old-time snow, people could go home, get some rest, and come back and plow. But the way we have this ice and sleet now, people are just out there all night, and it's just a kind of very down-home way that we're all going to have to be thinking about this with gratitude and foresight and everything else.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, we will vote on Article 5. Shall the town vote to approve highway fund expenditures in the amount of $1,020,911 for fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, for which revenues will be raised through taxes and other sources? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And you have passed Article 5. Article 9, do I hear a motion?
Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $6,000 for Guilford Cares?
Is there a second?
Do you need to repeat it?
Yes, I will. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,000 for Guilford Cares? Is there any comment or questions? Yes.
My name is Sandy Lynn, and I'm here representing the Guilford Cares Board. Last year at this time, we did not have a community nurse. Guilford Cares was founded by a nurse who saw the need for someone who could give service in people's homes. Now we have a community nurse, and her name is Sandy Mers. Will you stand up? She brings many years of service, a lot of it to elderly people. She worked with Beata, and she is familiar with the concept of helping people stay at home and get the services that they need. She can draw blood. She can give shots. She can help you contact a doctor, make an appointment. She can go with you to a doctor's appointment to be another pair of eyes and ears. If you're in a quandary about your condition, what you really need, she can help you talk about that, figure that out, and make some referrals for you. Our director, Leah Gessner, knows of many resources that you may want to take advantage of. Anyway, the nurse. I know you're familiar with the food pantry. There's a bounteous supply of food there every single week. We have volunteer drivers. I get driven once a week because I can't see anymore to drive. A volunteer takes me and another woman food shopping and for errands. That same volunteer will take you to a doctor's appointment, to a community event. We have a lot of medical equipment that is being loaned out all of the time. All of these services are free of charge. Thank you. And thank you for your support, your individual support, and the support of the town for Guilford Cares.
Any other comments? Yes.
Ellie Cappy Goldfarb, Lee Road. I'm a nurse at Grace Cottage Hospital. I've been in touch with Leah quite a bit because the other communities, this is hearsay, but Putney, Dummerston, the other communities, Putney Cares, Guilford Cares, only loan out equipment or give equipment to residents of those towns. And this came up at the hospital one day, and I said, I don't think that's true for Guilford. And I contacted Leah, who said, we will give equipment to whomever needs that equipment. And I spread that around, and that is something that makes Guilford special. And when I went and saw what Leah has over there, I was floored. And so many times people need a walker, you need a wheelchair, you need crutches for 2 months, 5 months, while you're rehabbing or until a loved one dies. And it's, rather than spending the money for something new, it's such an amazing resource, and I just wanted to give my plug to that.
Thank you, Ellie. Yes. Right there. Got it.
You didn't say my name right. Michelle Frizzy, Guilford Center. I just want to tag on to that because I called Leah actually Saturday because my mother-in-law broke her pelvis and we needed a walker and all kinds of things really quick so she could go home. And no, she's not a Guilford resident. She lives right over the line. My husband and I are active in Guilford a lot. But without such an amazing organization in this town, I couldn't have fulfilled her needs. And I just want to say thank you.
Laura, up here.
I just want to stress something that Leah has told me over and over, the director. The Guilford Cares is, yes, about loading medical equipment, yes, about supporting with transportation. It's also about wellness. And Leah teaches Tai Chi. The idea is health and wellness in addition to what's already been said.
Other comments? Okay, we will vote on Article 9. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,000 for Guilford Cares? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have passed Article 9. Article 10, do I hear a motion?
Yes. My name is Zahn Eastis. I'm on the select board, recently appointed, and I live on Yaw Road, off Weatherhead Hollow Road. Article 10, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $238,450 for the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department?
Is there a second? Okay.
There are representatives of the fire department here to answer any questions if we have them. This is a pretty straightforward request. It's a very minor increase this year of $8,387.
Any questions or comments? Jared.
Good morning. Is this thing on? I'll try to make it short and sweet. I know everybody wants to get to lunch. First of all, thank you for everybody in your support. Everybody at the station sees it. They appreciate it. They notice it. As he said, our slight increases, we're going to be doing some building maintenance. Our building's getting to that point. Our next little piece that we had that we'd like you to know is we've taken over the years and developed a sinking fund for a new truck. We've got that truck. It's in service. If anybody cares to, we're there Tuesday nights training. Come see it. It's a huge, beautiful new truck that you should know costs us a lot of money, and you did not see it in this budget. It didn't change one bit, which is a huge plus to all our trustees, our truck committee that spent years on going over, getting the details down so we got the truck we wanted. We replaced a 2-person cab with a 6-person cab so we could take our steady roster, which is hovering around 32 to 35, give or take, which is huge. That's huge for this area for a volunteer department to stay at that. The next little piece I wanted to talk about is it was mentioned earlier, the bond for the fire department, fire station has been paid. The last payment was spring or sometime. The last payment was $50,000. We've talked as a board, and we think it's a good idea that down the road, so we can do what we did with the truck, that we would like to try to keep that money coming to the fire department. We understand we want to keep taxes low. We want to keep our budget low, level funded up till this year, which is a slight increase. But we want to take that, we're thinking $35,000, put it into a capital fund for our roofs getting old. I know it doesn't seem it, but I think we're working on 15 years now at the new station. Expenditures like that. Down the road right now, we've gotten grants to get new equipment, which is now out back sitting in trailers. We'd like to, down the road, maybe put a lean-to or some sort of addition up to keep that expensive equipment under cover and so we can keep it for longer. At this point, I'd like to make a motion to add $35,000 to the fire department budget.
So you're making a motion to add $35,000 to the budget, to the appropriation?
Yes, please.
Is there a second? Sorry, okay. So that's an amendment. We can discuss the amendment. So the article would read, raise and appropriate the sum of $273,450. Is that correct? Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Did we get a second? Okay. 35,000 as a capital, for capital expenses, correct, Jared? Yep, for capital expenses. Yes.
Ann Ryder, Tater Lane. I guess I was sort of listening to your rap, but I wasn't understanding where the new money was needed. So could you run through what came up after the budget creation that needed an additional 35,000? Thanks.
Yes, after we did our budget process, and actually we went and we present our budget to the select board, that's when we learned of the 50,000 bond payment being done, and we tried to, in quick fashion, figure out how we could somewhat keep that, some of that money coming to the fire department. So we want to put that money into a capital fund for building expenditures down the road. So hopefully, if we have to do something, we most likely will down the road, obviously, when things get older, we could do just like we did with our truck and not be a huge burden to the town coming to ask for a large sum of money. We'll have this building year to year.
Other questions or comments? Scott?
Hi, Sky Morse, Sweet Pond Road. I just want to clarify the request. As I understand it, there was a bond that the town took out to build the fire station, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm relatively new back here, so I'm trying to catch up on history. So we took out a bond, and it took us some number of years to pay down the bond, and we've now paid it off. So in theory, there is some amount of money that we are no longer paying on that bond. And if I understand the proposal correctly, it is to take less than all of that. So there is a net savings to the town year over year, but to take something less than that payment and put it aside into an account so that when a capital expenditure is needed, like the roof, that we will have funds and we won't have to dig into our pockets to fund this. And perhaps we can have some additional clarification on funding sources that are available for this type of thing versus equipment. It's my understanding that there is funding available for rural departments like this for equipment, but for a new roof, that type of funding may be more difficult to come by, and so this is trying to help us all plan ahead for a large expenditure down the road. Is my understanding correct?
Jared, you want to answer that?
Sure. And I apologize, I was trying to make it quick. I didn't give the history of the bond, and you're right on that. The money that the town saved with the bond this year, I think it was 50,000. I think there's, if we did our gazindas right, there's 36,000 roughly that we would be saving. So 35 would bring us back to about level. And as far as grants for equipment, we have a very huge addition to our trustees. Dan Engel does a huge bonus for us, getting us grants and writing things. Federal grants, we're actually completing one right now for a set of jaws and extrication equipment. We've gotten one for water rescue equipment 2 years ago for $28,000. That does everything, including the training. So yes, we are out there going after those grants, and it depends on projects and when the project's happening and when the funding is available. So yes, when those projects come up, we definitely do search everything to try to make it feasible for everybody.
Katie? Macy? Can we have the mic up front?
Katie Buckley, Fern Drive. I totally support that a capital fund is created for the fire department. I think that is really forward thinking and very intelligent in terms of how to approach it. I would suggest that the town actually create a segment of its capital fund specifically for the purpose of funding capital improvements to the fire station, and that since it is taxpayer money, that it is held with the town and it's used for the express purpose of the fire station, and that the town manages it, it's protected. You guys are a nonprofit, no offense to you, but as someone who has participated in nonprofits, and I think you're all amazing, and I think everybody involved right now is great, but that doesn't protect you all in the future in case you do have a mismanagement of funds that the taxpayer money is at any risk.
So are you proposing an amendment?
I'm not quite sure how you want to do that, sir, moderator.
Well, we're considering an amendment now. We can amend that amendment to I suppose, for the town to create a town-managed fund for the $35,000 for capital expenses for the fire department. Okay. Point of order. Okay. Yes.
It's possible, I'm seeing nods, that Jared will accept an amendment to his amendment, and without discussion on our part, he'll make some changes, and we'll be able to do what was suggested. I'm Kelly Frost from the Lee Road.
Don has his hand up. I think he's going to take issue with my ruling, or it's not my suggestion.
I'm not the parliamentarian, but Don McLean, Packer Corners Road, I think that would require a separately warned article on a future meeting. If it's not part of the fire department's budget anymore, I don't think we can suddenly create a town capital fund.
Okay, yeah, that could be true. So, go ahead, Sheila.
So, Sheila Morris, Melody Hill. I think there's a workaround. Let me think. First of all, the select board can establish by its own vote, can establish a reserve fund for any purpose and vote. And so if it is the will of this body, and I think maybe we could take get an indication of whether or not this works. Katie, you want to help me out here?
So I think the workaround could be that we approve the fire department's amendment to their budget amount. Okay, so it's an amendment to the warrant article. Don, I'm going to look across at you to help me out here. With the caveat that they in turn pay the town of Guilford that amount to be deposited into the town capital fund, which is already in existence, so you don't need to create another fund, and that it is called out separately, which you'll notice the capital fund is in there separately in your town report, for the express purpose of the fire department capital improvements. And you can even specify what those are.
And can I just say one more thing, Rick? I would like to say that so it was a big deal that we paid down this $50,000 bond, but every year it was $3,600 something in interest. So I'm just going to call out, shout out to Katie, who years ago, as our town administrator, had us in this body establish a capital fund for all the town's assets. And so we have money saved up so that we don't have to go into debt for the garage improvements, for the town office improvements, for the library building, the museum, et cetera. This town has money saved up so that we never increase our debt load, or we don't have to at this point, also for highway equipment. And so it makes a lot of sense for the fire department also to have its funds set aside for the same purpose, and I'm really strongly in favor of this, so thank you.
Michael Kramer, Maple Hill Drive. Just a question. It's always dangerous to predict the future, but is the model here for the $35,000 that would be a one-shot drop that would go into whichever fund it goes into, or is this envisioned as that much or something comparable per year in the future?
Jared?
Per year, okay.
Per year.
Thank you.
New line item. Jackie?
Hello. Jackie Gaines, Route 5. I approve completely with this 35,000, but maybe I am one of the really simple people here, which I'm okay being. I'm getting confused. I think to start trying to do another 35, I would hope that we could have a motion, second it, and vote on Jared's request, and then perhaps go ahead and do whatever you're trying to do for the select board that sounds like they already have the ability to do, which it's great that there's a great amount of people here, though, that can hear it, and it can be voted on today in addition to the first one. That would be my wish.
Okay. All right, well, before we call the question, it's my understanding that if we were going to set up the fund or transfer the money, that would have to be an amendment to the amendment. We can't vote on this extra 35,000, pass it, and then have another article which is not warned about where the money goes and how it's handled. So are we okay in passing the amendment and then just leaving it up to the fire department and the select board to transfer the money into the town capital fund? Are people okay with that? Okay. One more comment? Oh, and then, someone's called the question. Hold on, someone's called the question. Sorry, before your hand was up. Oh, you did? Okay. Sorry, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Mike Iacona, Meadow Sky Drive. I have a question. If we were to allocate money to the fire department, where would it come from? Do we have excess in the budget to pay for it, or would we have a deficit?
This would come from the 50,000 that you normally would have been paying for the bond that you're no longer paying anymore. So the 35 would come out of that savings. We've allocated some of that, it looks like, in the town report. So I think there's like 36 left, so 35 would bring you back to 0. If I'm right. No?
Partially what Jared, I think there's just two different thought processes. Over time, this would increase taxes from where we are day one today if we added a 35,000 per year increase for the fire department's capital equipment fund. So that would be spread out in the future in taxes. It's not like that money's just sitting in left field waiting to be utilized. But
okay, the question's been called. Is there a second? Sorry, the amendment has been called and seconded. Takes a 2/3 vote to cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate on this amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, we will vote on the amendment to add $35,000 to the appropriation for the fire department, and then we'll vote on the actual amount. All those in favor of the amendment as stated, adding $35,000 to the appropriation for the the fire department, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. You have passed the amendment, and now we will vote on the amended Article 10. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $273,450 for the Guilford Volunteer Fire Department? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have passed Article 10. Now it's noon. We've got a couple options. We can break for lunch. We can keep going, or we can hear from Sarah. Break for lunch? Okay, and Becca's not here, right? Okay.
I don't really want to be looked at as Dana Berry at this moment. I would like to be looked at as Reagan Beebe, who is the CC4G's community ambassador. She is going to be working with our families as we did when we were working on the Promise grant, and we're going to be starting up some spring activities, so you'll be hearing from her probably on Front Porch Forum. The CC4G and Delta Campus are together and working on retrofitting a building that Omega is donating to CC4G to start an infant early childhood care center with the hopes of having the building and all of the licenses ready to go at the end of next school year, May, June, with the idea of offering summer camps. Program's going to offer care for infants, waddlers, toddlers, and as they get to 3 years old, we'll hold them until they get to 4 years old, where they might be able to come here to the Guilford School program, or they might be able to stay with us until they're 5. It's going to serve Guilford's children, Omega's employment children, and if there's room for other children in the surrounding community. I'm going to read one of the 4 members that we have on the Parent Advisory Committee very quickly while people are coming in and sitting down. So I'm not Dana Barry. I'm not Reagan. I am Brittany Christensen, who owns the Top Tier Bakery over here with the country store. If she were here, she and Megan had to leave because their children that are in their arms had to go home and get their lunch and their nappies. If we had a child care center, they could be here all day and talk to you about how wonderful it is. Instead, I'm going to very quickly read what Brittany had hoped to present. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us today. My name is Brittany Christensen, and I own a small wholesale business right here in Guilford, the Top Tier Baking Company, located in the Broadbrook House. Have you ever wondered what goes on in that quiet space next to Guilford Country Store? Well, Top Tier operates as a wholesale business, providing desserts for local restaurants, businesses, specializing in weddings and events. Nearly 3 years ago, I moved my shop from West Brattleboro to this beautifully renovated space in Guilford with plans of grandeur. Then, 2 months after opening, our family found out we were to be blessed with a daughter who is now 2 years old. As a sole proprietor and a mom of 2, one that attends Guilford School, I've been faced with the challenges of finding quality and affordable childcare that meets the needs of our families and our work schedules. As a member of the Parent Advisory Committee, I'm fortunate to be working with CC4G on implementing standards and policies, as my daughter will attend the facility. We would like to encourage the community members to spread the word, and we welcome other parents to attend meetings and offer feedback. Having a child care program right here in Guilford, a little bit of the Delta campus has a little sliver of Guilford land, since we couldn't really find a big space for the program, so she's correct, in Guilford, located very conveniently for me. We appreciate the community support and look forward to seeing this early childhood education in the near future. Young moms, if you need and want to help us develop our policies and procedures regarding the who, why, what, where, and whens that licensing requires of us, just look at our website. The program's going to be open 10 hours a day, year-round, with summer camp. And Leah, when we spoke around the holiday season, we had this feeling of grandeur that maybe we could bring in some of our elders, like me, part-time, and be able to get an intergenerational program going for all of us. Thank you very much.
Now, with your permission, we'll suspend the rules and let our Senator Becca Balint address the body, if there's no objection.
I wanted to start by saying, so I'm one of your 2 senators for Windham County. I live in Brattleboro with my family, but I used to teach here at the Guilford Central School, and it was some of the best years of teaching that I did. So I always feel a little bit like I'm coming home here. I wanted to start with a quick prop to Representative Sarah Coffey. It has been such a pleasure to get to know her better through her work in the legislature. She is such a hard worker for the towns of Guilford and Vernon. I just want you to know that. So, and I wanted to make a quick announcement about the coronavirus, just briefly. The Vermont State Health Department put out a number last night that I'm letting folks know this morning. We consider ourselves in Vermont global citizens, and hello, Ann Ryder. Many of us travel, and the Vermont Health Department put out this number last night. So if you have a pen, if you can write it down, if you've been traveling, it's 802-863-7240. And the reason why I'm giving that out, 802-863-7240, is because we may be carriers and we don't know it. And we are surrounded now by states that have all had cases of coronavirus. It's just a matter of time. We have so many people who are at risk in our county, elderly people that are more at risk than some of us, and we should all be doing our part. So if you think you may have been exposed because of traveling, please give the health department a call. They do now have testing kits from the CDC, so they can guide you towards actions that you can take to keep your neighbors safe. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the two committees that I sit on. I sit on the Economic Development and Housing Committee and the Finance Committee. And we have been doing a lot of work in my morning committee on housing in Vermont. We have an incredible shortage of housing at all income levels in pretty much every region of the state. We made a huge investment in 2017, $37 million investment, which was then parlayed into about $150 million of investment statewide. The largest investment in housing in a decade, which has been amazing, has put 800 new housing units online, but it's still a drop in the bucket. We need so many more. So we had gone to the treasurer to ask if maybe we could do another large bond, and she was concerned about our bond rating in the state. So we're looking at some other interesting strategies, and one that I want to tell you about is tax increment financing. And I will not bore you too much with the details, but let you know that in Vermont, these TIF districts have been available to larger towns and cities as a way to invest in infrastructure. And they haven't been available for smaller towns, but we know that in rural parts of Vermont, we need help from the state in order to do investments, especially around sewer and water, to be able to build housing and also other businesses in our town centers. So we're calling them mini TIFs, and hopefully we'll be able to get them both through the Housing Committee and the Finance Committee, but it will be an exciting opportunity for towns like Guilford to take advantage of that. The other work that I've been doing this session that I'm very proud of is my work on pharmaceuticals. So the Finance Committee deals with taxes, but we also deal with issues surrounding insurance. And one important bill that I want to tell you about is that we were hearing from many Vermonters about the cost of insulin. And I don't know how many of you understand what has been happening, but the cost of insulin has tripled in the past decade, and it has become an emergency for many diabetic patients here in Vermont. They cannot afford the insulin. We had someone come to my committee a couple weeks ago. She was paying $1,600 out of pocket a month for her insulin. So the federal government needs to take action on this. But until that time, we felt like we needed to do something for these Vermonters. So we passed a bill in the Senate that will cap the amount of out-of-pocket costs that a patient will pay for insulin at $100, regardless of how many drugs that they need. Because what's happening is these patients are rationing their insulin, and they're getting incredibly sick. And this is a life-threatening condition. So we wish we could do more. It is the issue right now that has gotten me the most angry in my work in the legislature this session, because if you look at the charts of the three main insulin drugs, there is no other way to look at it except that there is price fixing going on with the pharmaceutical companies. The patent for insulin was sold for $1 back in 1923 to the University of Toronto, and the doctor who sold it said, "I don't want anyone to make money off of this, because it's a life-saving drug." And here we are, Vermonters spending hundreds of dollars that they don't have on this. So I'm hoping my colleagues in the House will be able to shepherd that through. The other thing I wanted to tell you about is we're hearing a lot in the Senate about the crushing student debt that so many families are carrying. And again, there has to be a lot of work that's done at the state and federal level that will take many, many months of wrangling in order to make some real progress on this issue. But in the meantime, we are partnering with the Department of Financial Regulation to start regulating our student loan servicers, because it came to our attention that many Americans are paying billions of dollars in additional interest because they've been steered towards loans that are unfavorable in their terms. The average Vermont borrower for college carries about $31,000 in debt, and that's $200 a month for 13 years if you're able to make that payment monthly. So these young families who are trying to make investments in other places in their community and buying houses and investing in their communities do not have the money because of the amount of debt they're carrying. So we are finally regulating these loan servicers, and will hopefully be able to get Vermonters in more favorable terms for their loans. So I will be reporting more on that in the future if it does, again, make it through the House. But both those bills, the insulin bill and the student loan servicer bill, passed unanimously in the Senate. Democrats and Republicans coming together to put Vermonters at the center of the conversation. So I really wanted you to know that. The last thing I want to say before I turn it over to Representative Coffey is only 30 people in the state of Vermont get to represent you in the Senate. And I love my job, and I'm grateful to all of you who have sent me there to do work on your behalf. Thank you.
We are so lucky to have Senator Balint as one of our two Windham County senators. And I wanted to let folks know, you know, while we're up in Montpelier, we as a delegation meet every other week, and we're so fortunate that the House members and our senators get along. That's not true for every delegation in the state, and I'm just so grateful for her leadership and her style and all that she's doing in the Senate to represent all of us. And it's really an honor to be here for the second year, standing before you as your state rep. It's really an honor to represent you, and to have your trust in me. And I gotta say, by that thick town report that we've been looking at, it's just remarkable how much this community gets done. And I wanna say, up in the State House, I get to hear how others see our town. And it makes me so proud, because we see that others see how Guilford is coming together across differences to find common ground and a vision for our community. You heard it earlier from the Seveds BDCC folks. I don't know if you picked up, and they're like, well, in Guilford, you might not have this problem. It's not because we're an affluent community, it's because it's a community that works together. So I'm so, so proud to be from Guilford and representing you in the House. And our neighbors over in Vernon are often asking me and looking over to our town that is of a similar size. How do you guys get things done in Guilford that we're trying to do? So I want you all to know that this town is really shining bright, and it's really I'm really so proud and honored. And I just wanted to be brief. I hope that I have more detailed updates in my legislative report that I've left at both of these tables, but I just wanted to give you a sense of where we are. It's an exciting time in the legislature. We're almost halfway through. We're coming to a period it's called crossover, which is almost the halfway point. So there's a lot of action on the floor. We're getting our priorities and our bills out of committee and onto the floor. And I want to say I'm so proud of some of the work that we did. We overrode the governor's veto of the minimum wage bill, which I think is hugely important, and I've heard from a lot of you. And it's hard to do this in the House with 150 members, but we had 100 folks come together for that. Also, we took steps to modernize Act 250, and some of the work that we do is in the finer details and don't get onto the House floor, but I was pretty excited because I was able to talk to some members of that committee to get village centers included in the language as being, because there's an idea that there'll be a potential exemption for downtowns so that we can have more compact development in Vermont and less suburban sprawl and protection of our forests. So that bill was voted out of the the House. It was a long debate. It's a complicated bill, and it's going to be going to the Senate. And I think there's room for some improvement. It wasn't perfect, but we got some really good things, protection of our trails, including village centers, into the language. So, that's what it's all about, is about finding some compromise. So we're at that. But the thing I'm most proud about happened the week before last, where we as Vermont passed, with a tripartisan support, the Global Warming Solutions Act, which we know that climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing our time. And with this bill, we will have a plan to meet our targets, and state government will be accountable. It is a hugely important step. It's not the last step. We know we have a lot more work to do. We know we will be revisiting this legislation, but we're really excited. And we had a huge, overwhelming vote, 105 votes in support of it, which is a tripartisan effort, and a big hats off to the chair and vice chair of the House Energy and Technology Committee, one of whom is a Windham County rep, Laura Sibilia. And I just wanted to give you a couple of quick highlights to let you know what I'm working on. And a lot of attention gets paid to what we do on the House floor, but really so much of the work that we do is in committee. Unlike the Senate, we in the House have one committee. So the description that is, as a freshman legislator, was told to me that the Senate gives it the 30,000-foot view, and then we get into the weeds or the details. My committee is House Institutions and Corrections, which is both a money and a policy committee, which I love having those two realms. We focus on the capital bill, which is how we allocate and spend our state bonded dollars. So this session we've been looking a lot at the moratorium on school construction, and we're working through some of that. We're helping our colleagues in House Education. Our state bonded dollars also go to fund things like the level 1 beds at the Brattleboro retreat, among other things like our veterans homes, our police barracks, our forest parks and recreation, and our clean water fund. When we go back, my committee is going to be doing some very deep work on Justice Reinvestment 2, which is some very deep work coming out of the Council on State Governments, and working to make some pretty significant reforms in our corrections and criminal justice system. And we know that folks right now, we're experiencing this in a number of ways in Vermont and in Windham County, that there are mental health issues and substance use disorders, and it's hitting our corrections, our courts and our correctional systems in a very significant way. And what the work that we're going to be doing is looking at how we can put more emphasis on getting people and support in the community, because we know that getting mental health treatment in a correctional facility is not always the ideal place to do that. So it's really exciting work and to improve the outcomes for people reentering from prison, but also keeping in mind public safety and also our tax dollars, because it costs anywhere between $52,000 and $65,000 a year to incarcerate a person in the state of Vermont, and we know we can do better. We in Vermont, our Department of Corrections is within the Agency of Human Services, which is a very good thing because it puts people and humanity at the center of things. So it's a great committee to serve on. So really, I want to say thank you again for electing me to this seat. It's really an honor to represent you. And if the moderator allows us, do you want us to take any questions for Senator Ballin and myself? If folks have a couple of questions, Senator Ballin. And we know you have some more work to do, so we don't want to take up a lot of time, but we can open it to the floor. Do you want to, if people can use the microphone, because that way it gets on the BCTV tape as well. Here you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Laura Lewis, Melody Hill. Sarah, you were talking about the mental health situation, and what could you just run through that one more time? I have a question if I understood it correctly.
Sure. Sure, in my committee, are you talking specifically about Brattleboro, or are you talking about the statewide?
Whatever you'd like to share.
Okay. What's interesting in my committee, we look at the whole system of mental health. We have the commissioner and the secretary of the Agency of Human Services talk about the beds that we have in the state from the emergency rooms on up. And we know that what was a huge eye-opener to me was to see how significant role that the Brattleboro retreat plays in that. And the state has asked the Brattleboro Retreat to build level 1 beds, which they're in the process of completing this year. So I'm going to let you finish your question.
Well, the question has to do with the fact that we, for some reason, had to do with timing, don't seem to be going to act on the HCRS request for funds. And am I correct that they are a mental health group? Yeah. So, you know, I don't like the fact that Guilford is the only town that's not helping with that, when I'm sure we make use of it in some way.
Sure, I think that's a question of parliamentary procedure that our moderator, I think that they didn't, my understanding is that they didn't get their request in time. It's not that this town doesn't want to act on it, because I think, as long as I've been here, we have always supported HCRS. So I think that, I don't think that they didn't have the signatures, is what I'm hearing.
But is there some way we can be helpful even if they didn't do their homework?
So I'm just saying it, repeating back, not without a warned article. So I'm sorry, Linda.
Laura.
I mean, Laura, sorry, Laura.
Whoever.
Yeah,
Whoever.
L, sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
But so if I could just add, just to be clear, HCRS is one of our designated agencies that deals with mental health throughout the state. We have several of those, what we call the DAs, and so they get a significant amount of funding from the state as well. I just want to be clear on that. It's not just individual towns that may be supporting them in that work.
Sean?
Sean Murphy. Hey, thank you very much. I was especially encouraged to hear that you're working on possibility of construction for schools. And the WSESD has done a feasibility study, and there might be an addition on the Academy School. And so I was really hoping that, you know, considering where we are in terms of financial wherewithal, that would be excellent. And then it's actually a two-part question. The other one is the weighting study that came out in 2019, and it would be a huge advantage and I think a realistic coalescence of funding for the WSESD if the weighting study was implemented as soon as possible. We could really use the relief. Thank you.
So why don't I take the school construction piece, and I'll let Senator Ballin answer the other question. It's a great question, and thank you, Sean, for serving. It's really important to have our voice on that district school board. So a few weeks ago, my committee, we had a joint committee with House Education to look at school construction, and our committee weighed in on some of it. Let me give people some history and background without taking up too much time. The state of Vermont has had a moratorium on school construction since 2007. Now, that doesn't mean that school construction hasn't happened. Bond votes have come before town, but prior to that, there had been money through the capital bill that would fund up to 30% of qualified expenses in school construction. So as you can easily imagine, that is 2007, do the math, 13 years ago, there's pressure building up. Many of our schools were built about 50 years ago when we created the Vermont Bond Bank to deal with school construction in our state. So there's a logic to 50 years after construction that many of our schools need have major work done. It's not going to be a quick fix, is the answer. What's coming out of the House Education Committee is a recommendation to do a statewide study. We also don't have the capacity within the Agency of Education. There used to be a position there that would help schools with their school construction. There's another critical piece to this, and that in Vermont, you've heard Senator Ballin talk about the treasurer not being willing to put more money in to take out bonds for housing. There's a finite amount of money that we can borrow as a state. And so we're, with some of the bond issues that are on the ballots around the state this year, if they all get approved, it really pushes us dangerously close to our limit. And we don't have right now currently a process that both prioritizes. We're paying for any school construction that's happening in South Burlington the same way that South Burlington will help in Brattleboro or Guilford through the funding formulas that we have. the big question is we don't want our capacity. My concern is we don't want that capacity to run out before some of our smaller, rural, less advantaged schools and school districts have a chance to do that. So this, if it passes out of the House, which we hope it will, and go on to the Senate, is we'll have an opportunity to at least have a new mechanism and a new tool in a $1.5 million investment to do an assessment of what's going on in our schools and a process for moving forward. So that's a long answer to your question, and I'd be happy to talk to some of the district school board members. That fund is not the only way for us to do construction in our schools. We can still go out for a bond with the school district. So the house is not burning down yet. So yeah, but.
So to your question about the weighting study, this is something that concerns your entire delegation. We have a lot of schools within the county that stand to get more money from the new pupil weighting study. So for those of you who haven't followed this, essentially a study was commissioned for UVM to do a deep dive in how money was allocated per pupil. And what they realized is that that initial weighting that was given to each pupil did not really take into account the cost of what it is to educate folks who are living in poverty, for one example. There are many different criteria that they looked at. And I just want to reassure you, my kids go to Green Street in Brattleboro. And in my second term in the Senate, the level of the kids who are qualifying for free and reduced lunch hit 70%. So I am well aware of this issue. I have brought it to the attention of the chair of Senate Education. As Sarah said, it won't be quick, but our eyes are absolutely on it, and many schools in Windham County stand to benefit if we do adopt a different weighting formula.
How about one more question?
Thanks to both of you. Steve Lemke, Green River, River Road. Vermont is one of the oldest states in the nation as far as age is concerned, and you keep hearing things on the radio and other places about facilities for aging adults. And I was wondering if the state had any plans for increasing, building, monitoring, regulating facilities that are, assisted living, nursing homes and things. It's a difficult problem because you need them, but if they're poorly run, then you have issues. So I was just wondering what was new or different in that.
No, we haven't looked at it.
So we're coming up against a philosophical decision that we made starting probably a decade ago in Vermont, in that we were prioritizing every Vermonter to be able to age in place where they wanted to age, which is for the vast majority of people at home, right? You want to be at home, you want to be surrounded by your loved ones. And what we're finding is we didn't quite factor in the amount of money it would cost to have visiting nurses and home health aides be able to make it possible for people to age in place. So I don't have a quick answer for you, except for we are very much aware of this problem, and we're trying to thread the needle carefully so that people do have the option to stay and age at home if that is what they choose. But there certainly is a swath of the population for whom that is not an option. They don't have the network at home to be able to do that. I spent some time at a facility earlier this month in Brattleboro, and they talked about what they're seeing now is you've got so many families now that have both, if you have two parents at home, they're both in the workforce, just trying to make ends meet. And that wasn't necessarily the case 20, 30 years ago. So the network that's been there to allow people to age in place in the past is not really there in the same way anymore. And so I absolutely share your concern, and I'd love to actually chat with you afterwards if you have a minute.
And I can't add a whole lot, except that I know in the House, there's a little bit of information on this report. The House is looking to pass the Older Vermonters Act. It's in our House Human Services Committee, because I think the case is to be made that sometimes we talk about Vermont, but we want Vermont to be the best place to age. We want to be inviting and support our seniors. And so we often hear about it spoken about in negative terms, but as I was speaking with somebody over lunch, I mean, it really, this is a great place to live and work no matter what age you are. And I think we do need to, with the demographic bubble that's going through our country, we want to have some supports better in place. And I think this is part of the conversation. There's an older workers caucus and older Vermonters caucus rather in the House, and we're definitely looking at this too. So, yeah, go ahead.
So the last thing I want to say is I know many of you here in Guilford, because I hear from you through emails and phone calls, care a whole lot about the climate change initiatives that we're taking on. What we've been hearing from the governor's team is they need to hear from you directly. They need phone calls. They are not necessarily trusting that what we're telling them about what we're hearing back home is actually what Vermonters want. And so I have a good relationship with the governor. We work closely together. On this particular issue, I'm getting very, very tired and frustrated with hearing that Vermonters don't care about this issue. So if you do, please call the office. Don't write a letter, don't write an email, take the time to call. Thank you.
Thank you.
We still on? Okay, thank you both, Senator Ballin and Representative Coffey. We are at Article 11. Do I hear a motion?
This one appears to work. Article 11, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,880 for the following human service organizations? Well, I will read what all those organizations are. Youth Services. Would people like me to read the amount? Why don't I? $1,605. The Women's Freedom Center, $1,000. Groundworks Collaborative, $1,000. Visiting Nurse and Hospice for Vermont and New Hampshire, $6,300. Retired Senior Volunteer Program, $485. Senior Solutions, $850. Brattleboro Area Hospice, $300. Gathering Place, $500. Brattleboro Senior Meals, $350. Early Education Services, $850. AIDS Project of Southern Vermont, $350. Connecticut River Transit, $250. And SEVCA, $2,040.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I won't read the whole thing over again, except the introduction. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,880 for the following human services organizations? Any discussion or questions? It appears we're ready to vote on Article 11. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,880 for the following human service organizations? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And you have approved Article 11. Article 12, do I hear a motion? Wait one minute. Should I read it?
I'll read Article 12.
Good.
Shall the town collect its taxes through the treasurer without Is it on? There you go. Shall the town collect its taxes through the treasurer without discount, interest at 1% per month or fraction thereof be charges after October 15th?
A second? Yeah. Any discussion? Okay, Article 12, shall the town collect its...
We have to vote?
I know, I'm putting it up to a vote here, I think. Article 12, shall the town collect its taxes through the treasurer without discount at interest of 1% per month or fraction thereof will be charged after October 15th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. And you passed Article 12. Article 13, transact any other business that may lawfully come before this meeting.
Oh, Rick? I have...
Veranda.
Oh, okay. So may I have the... Okay, Gordon, put down your pencil. I know that you're all a little dotty from due diligence, but here is a poem for Gordon Little. Praise song for Gordon Little on leaving our select board. And I wrote this last night at 2 a.m. And I had help, not at 2 a.m., from Sheila Morse and from Sylvia Morse. Actually, there are quotations from both Sheila and Sylvia, and I also had help from Elizabeth and from Marty Ramsberg. So here we go. Town meeting. March calls us to order. Whatever the weather or viruses, neighbors, friends, we mingle, wade through warnings, contest, then come to clarity and lunch. Before the gavel falls, we mark the changes, climate, and the cost of gravel, the new school news, and now the need to bid farewell to one we've counted on. Gordon Little, whenever we gather, his voice is familiar. But wait a minute, what about, have we considered? What does Dan think? Will it make a difference if, or I'm fully in support of, sure, I'll take it on. Beyond our civic sphere, Gordon weighs in, always giving. At the hockey rink, he says, I bet you can do it. A young girl comes to own the ice. His daughter and son grow into champions. A host of children glow in his gaze. With love, his team evolves, prevails. Up Collier Road, Gordon strides with Bella, bounding through the maples. Here is the sugar house. Savor its history. Trees felled and milled by Harry Evans. Floor poured by Pete Wild and finished by truck light, high beams at nightfall. The old evaporator salvaged from Coombs. Life is sweet sweat equity. In many kitchens, alone with friends, Gordon makes a meal delicious, even kale. And he is no stranger to a heap of dishes. Calm in the barn, midwife to use. Gordon can deliver twins or singletons, feet first or breech, even with a class of youngsters gaping. Gordon welds farm implements older than his years, and he shows up when your baler's broken, rain approaching, just as his wife, the feisty surgeon, zooms in to repair our failing limbs. That was the joke. Fair-minded, far-sighted, even-handed, long-legged, open-hearted, self-effacing, steady-working, easy-going Gordon who has your back. And this is the Sylvia part. Great hugs, absorbed in and attentive to whatever the moment brings. Praise him.
Wow. So, Veranda, thank you very much for that. That's an extremely kind gift to be on my way with, and unbelievable. To the town of Guilford and to this great body that's up here, it's been an absolute honor to be a part of the select board. I have learned a great deal, and I appreciate the support I've gotten along the way from a multitude of people. For me, walking away, I think the biggest thing that I have enjoyed about this job is just learning new faces, new people, getting to know other, citizens in the town of Guilford. But what Guilford stands for more than anything is community. And it's been a pleasure to be a part of that community in a much closer way than I ever had before. So I thank you for the support that I've received my 5 years as a selectman. So thank you.
Thank you, Gordon, and thank you, Veranda. That is the kind of other business we like to conduct here. Linda.
Linda Hecker, Packer Corners Road, and Chair of the Conservation Commission, in which capacity I'm addressing you. Okay, why am I wearing green today? St. Patrick's Day? No. I am representing the emerald ash borer who is coming to an ash tree near you sooner than we hope. And it turns out our town is very, very rich in ash trees. So we want everybody in town to be aware that there's a small iridescent green insect that will infest our ash trees probably within 5 to 10 years and take out 90% of them. So the Conservation Commission has been proactively working with the Road Commission to conduct an inventory to identify on the town right-of-ways and town properties the ash trees that are likely to be hazardous as they deteriorate. They become brittle and fragile and very difficult and expensive to take down through this process. So we are proactively working with the Road Commission to identify the trees and the rights-of-ways that are likely to fall on the road or on a house and take care of them first. And all of this is unfortunately going to be expensive because there is no state or federal money to assist with removal of the trees. The good news is that in the early stages, the wood is still usable for firewood and board wood, so we want to identify those trees early and take them down while they are still usable. And Veranda mentioned the possibility of distributing firewood in town, which is a great thing for us to tackle in the next few years. Landowners, you probably have ash trees, and on our table out there we have a couple of information sheets for you. We are not recommending you take down all your ash trees preventatively if they're not leaning over your house. But there's more information for you. We also have information on new web pages on the town website, which you can access under commissions. Conservation Commission has pages. We have a page on ash tree inventory and emerald ash borer. So, in closing about this, we want everybody to be aware and thinking about where are the ash trees on your property, and also to consider possibly for next year establishing something like an ash tree removal reserve fund to make sure we're not hit with an unmanageable expense in 1 or 2 years as the cycle peaks. The town's already set aside about $8,000 for this coming year. We're pretty sure we're going to need more in the future. Thank you.
Sure. Zahn?
Zahn Eastus, Yaw Road. I'm here on behalf of just talking about the, on your seat, there should be a sheet of paper that talks about the survey that we ask you to consider taking. This is about broadband. I know that a lot of work has been done in Guilford as well as around southeastern Vermont about the notions of broadband. What a frustration it's been in a lot of ways for a lot of communities. But there is funding available right now to do some study work so that we can learn more about what it might mean to actually bring broadband to Guilford. We're working very closely with the Windham Regional Planning Commission. We're also working with the other communities in the region here to look at the possibility of building a communications union district. To do that work, to find out whether or not we can even move forward, we need input from lots of people in this region. There are already, in the state of Vermont, there are 3 communication union districts that are standing as unique models. They're each 3 different models. We're looking here in southeastern Vermont at yet a different sort of model to move this idea forward. So there are a number of us on the select board, and Peter is our representative to this task force to look and consider deeply the issue of broadband in Guilford and make sure that we finally get a hold of it and we can be part of a larger effort that's coming down our way. So take the opportunity to fill out the survey. You can do it either online or you can do it via the mail. We have till March 17th, I think. So you have about 2 weeks to get that taken care of, and then we hope we can move forward. Thank you.
I'm Karen Murphy. I live in West Guilford. And I'm also on the Guilford Preservation Inc. board. And we've been having discussions about pedestrian safety in Algiers. And I know that the select board met with VTrans, and their final report, Gordon thinks, came out this past June. And unfortunately, VTrans did just about nothing. They did put up 2 signs. There's a sign if you're coming from Brattleboro, and there's another one if you're coming from the south that says pedestrian crossing next half mile. And I had never noticed it, and I imagine most of you hadn't either. But there are people who regularly need to cross that road to get to the store or back to their homes on the west side of Route 5. So one of the solutions that might be helpful is to put up those electronic speed monitoring signs, one on the south side of town and one on the north side of the town. Many studies have been done that show that these speed monitoring signs actually work. It's especially important if you're going northbound. On the new bridge, people come around the corner and they're still going 35 or more miles an hour. So if you look and see if your speed is 50 and you see one of those speed monitoring signs, it slows you down. Unfortunately, it's still 35, not 25 as asked, but even 35 would be better than 50. So unfortunately, there's no money from VTrans to install these signs. I've been given an estimate of $3,500 per sign. We might be thinking ahead to our highway department to install such signs. So thank you for any consideration.
Other business? Michelle?
So Michelle Frizee, speaking on behalf of the Planning Commission as the chair. There were these pieces on each of your seats, hopefully, talking about our town plan, where it's been 5 years. Our town plan's up in June again this year, but we would really enjoy public feedback on what we're writing. The draft that we have to share, there's a few copies still, I believe, by the door. It can be found online at guilfordvt.net. But we really would love for everyone in town to take a look at it, read it, come to our public hearing. I don't know, hearing forum feels formal, but on May 4th at BBCC at the Grange Broadbrook Community Center, we will be getting together to talk about what's written. And if you have anything you would like to share, any changes you would like to make, any insight on any of it, please feel like you can come and share your voice. It's been a long process. We've gone through the town plan 3 times in the last 2 years, and we're still not in agreement on anything, but we're doing our best. And so I highly encourage you to use this opportunity to have a further voice in your town and come share your opinions with us May 4th for that meeting. Thank you.
Ellie, in the back.
Hi, I'm Allie Mayanen. I live on Merrineck Road. First, I'd like to thank you all for voting. Great job. There's been a lot of people. Secondly, I'm wearing green not because I'm a bug, but because I'd like to remind you of Green Up Day, which is the first Saturday in May, and I hope you all can help participate and clean up our roadsides. Third, very quickly, is the Rec Club has a flyer out to give you some more information about who we are. And the Rec Club owns property which is adjacent to the fairgrounds, and it includes a tennis court, ball field, a cabin, and a pavilion. And we're looking at the assets of the Rec Club, and we're going to be creating a capital plan to make sure that we can maintain those assets. So there's a quick survey. We'd love to hear, as many other organizations, we'd love to hear from folks in the community about what's important to them. And there's a small brochure here. If you don't get one today, we'll probably be mailing them out to everybody. So, thank you.
Yes, Gordon.
A number of people spoke to me at lunchtime, and I just wanted to be very clear, circling back to the highway budget numbers again that Tim Harris had raised. I did not just go out back and whittle down some numbers so that they all fit. What I did, so that everyone is clear, is I took our verified numbers from the approved expense sheet that the select board had approved and applied it to those numbers to determine where the errors were. So I just want to be very clear that those numbers are on the official approved expense sheet for the highway budget for the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Any other business? Okay, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I would just remind you that the school board, or not the school board, which we don't have anymore, but the Leadership Advisory Council is going to do a presentation which is very worthwhile hearing. Some of us heard it at a pre-town meeting. Sean Murphy is also here to answer questions about the Unified School District. And there's a lot of good information, a lot of good things happening at the school, and I encourage you all to stay and hear that. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Al Franklin again, second year in a row. A second. Okay. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. And thank you for another town meeting.
All right, well, we're going to get started in hopes that some of you will sit down and stay. So my name is Beth Bristol. We're going to introduce the members of the Leadership Council and then go into a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we were formed. And then following our presentation, we have a really great video that was created by the students of Guilford School that highlights what they love about this place and some of the really cool fun things that they do. So like I said, Beth Bristol.
Erin Kachuk. Amy Skolnick.
Alexis Moshevitis.
Tasha Tillman and Mackie Dove.
Hannah Salisbury.
John Gagnon.
And our Leadership Council is a bit different organized than the school board was. So some of us are parents, we're all community members, some are teachers, and the neat thing about the Leadership Council is that we're able to do that. We actually have 2 full-time teachers and some substitute teachers here on our board, and so it's organized differently and adds a lot of value. Our Leadership Council was formed in November as a subcommittee of the school board. We were the first Leadership Council to form in our district, which we're really proud of. There are currently 6 of us, but we would love to work up to a number of 10. So we're encouraging community members to join us. Currently, we meet every other Friday at 1 p.m. here at Guilford School. But when we were discussing our meeting time, we realized that that specific time may be difficult for some members of our community to attend. So we are holding quarterly meetings that are held in the evenings. And our first quarterly meeting was held at pre-town meeting. So we had a great turnout. So I think we're going to ask somebody to hit the lights. It will get dark for a moment, but you won't be able to see our presentation if we don't shut the lights. So if anyone needs the lights turned on, just give a shout, and our master electrician will plug the lights back in. As they're working on that, I'll explain a little bit about the differences between the school board and the leadership council. So the school board, as it always has, continues to work on policies, making decisions, forming the budget. Sean Murphy and Kelly Young are our two Guilford representatives on that board. Wow. And so they will handle all of that school board business as usual. The Leadership Council serves more as an advocacy role. That's great. Advocacy and advisory role. So we work with John as the admin of the building to think about programs, capital needs that we want to advocate for with the school board. And we also are a sounding board for John for communication and feedback, community engagement. We talk about budget priorities and a strategic plan for this school in the future. All right. So the first two slides really are just a summary of our school. So this slide represents the student numbers in our various grades. And what's notable on this slide is that our numbers are looking better than they have in the past. A total of 120 or 119 is very healthy. And our pre-K program is really needs credit for a lot of bringing in new students. We currently have a wait list. We have had a wait list for several years now. It's very stable. We probably, if given the ability to expand, could host a second pre-K with the current numbers. So maybe down the road, that's something we should look into. And then this next slide just highlights some of the classes and programs that we offer. This is one of the things that our Leadership Council will be looking at when compared to the other schools in our district in terms of equity and what we have available and what they have available. And over time, we hope to even out our programming and become more equitable in our offerings.
So this talks about the MTSS model, which means we're helping every student where they're at academically. So some kids need more support than others, and we also are enriching students who are performing really well and giving them opportunities to challenge themselves to learn new things. So we work very fluidly between all the grade levels, and we meet often to talk about meeting our students' needs the best that we can.
So the MTSS system, just to add, stands for the multi-tiered system of support.
So this slide, here at GCS, we have a robust nature and project-based learning program. We have a farm-to-school program, and we're fortunate to have Sarah Rosso as our coordinator for that. She cooks with classrooms, food education. She spearheaded the holiday market that a lot of you probably came and attended. It was wildly successful. And they're going to be maple sugaring next week, which is going to be really fun for all the kids. We also have the Franklin Farm Connection. They provide us beef to serve in our cafeterias throughout the year. And we have 2 outdoor classrooms that are currently being used. Pre-K is using it on a daily basis. And then there's another classroom out to the side of this building that the older children can access and most of them do on a weekly basis.
Hello. Part of the continuous improvement program identifies strengths of safety and belonging, and underneath you can see the bullets about all the programming that is done to help foster a sense of safety and belonging throughout the school for the students, staff, faculty, and for the community that is part of this ecosystem as well. Something that I want to point out is that last year, through the PBIS program, which is the Positive Behavior Intervention and Support Program, last year the school received a gold star, and this year we got identified as an exemplar school through that program. I can say with 2 children here that they certainly look forward to the different ways that that program integrates through their life, and it's always good to find the positive and build off of that. So it's really a strengths-based system. And I would say that through these different ways of fostering safety and that sense of belonging, that everyone that comes into the school can sense that and benefit from it. And we are continuing to monitor that and build off of that strength here at Guilford Central.
We have parents and students both do a school climate survey. The parents do one in the fall and the students do one in the spring. This past fall, the survey results show overwhelmingly that Guilford Central School is meeting or exceeding expectations in these bulleted areas.
So this slide shows the state-mandated standardized assessments that all students grades 3 through 8 take in the state of Vermont. They're referred to as the SBAC, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. And you can see that Guilford, in terms of our school district, we scored at 64% of our children scored as proficient in English language arts, which is the second highest score in the school district. The state average for ELA was 57%, and again, we were at 64%. This next slide in green is mathematics, grades 3 through 8, and then it also shows the state BUHS in the middle school. For us, we scored at 66% were proficient in mathematics. The state average is 44%, and the SU average, or the school district average, excuse me, is 48%. So in both math and in English language arts, our children are making steady progress. Our goal is for 100% proficiency in on these assessments, and we're making very strong progress. And it goes back to what Hannah spoke about with the multiple tiered support system.
So now we will share with you the video that the students put together, and then following that we'll have some time for questions if you have any.
It's always a great place to find pets. We love gym! I love PE because it has sports and you can do jump roping, and I love jump roping. Our favorite thing is West Side! My favorite thing is to do kitchen. We use boards and birds nests and use my favorite thing to do is plan instructions. Saving Fred is our favorite third grade memory. So what happened with Fred the worm? He was riding on his boat, and then there was a giant wave, and his boat he let go his lightsaber that was so big, so that he doesn't know how to swim, but it's under the boat, so we have to try to get it, but he can't touch the water because he has to swim, so we have to help him. Okay, so I got the paper clips out, and I didn't. Our strategy is stretching out the gummy, making it nice and wide, and trying to slide on to this little guy's head. It's a fun activity to do when you're bored, and because it's a tricky activity, and when you get it, it feels so good. And it's really awesome. We love going on science field trips. Museum today, Chris is studying. We looked up the clouds and placed your floating in the valley. Museum here that is shown against Boston Sun in this area. Do you know what made this? It actually is an ancient toilet. You were literally into the ground. We climbed to the top of Mount Sugar Loaf to get a look at the valley. We learned about a story when Pokemon and the Great Eater were battled for this land.
We went up to Hogback Mountain to the Southeast Vermont Natural History Museum to learn about animal fishing.
We were riding up the mountain. Bethel pet a snapping turtle and nobody lost their way. But you can imagine it because I would. Did you know that how we see individual trees, a red-tailed hawk will see individual bees? I enjoy making the testimony of this rug because I like to cook at home and I like to cook at school. I learned how to put too much of one ingredient in the festival to throw. It changes the testimony. When I was mostly at the market, was designing the labels and putting them on the truck. It taught me about starting small. Labeling our products was fun, and we chose it because they were local ingredients and they all had pestle and sugar spread with both great tastes. I can part of what we learned is food. Our running food is something how to do. Those are our favorite parts of the Guilford Holiday Market. Farmers want to know about the solid strawberry. Well, we have a solid watermelon of a solid carbon water called lava. Robbie Habib solid strawberry bubble stocks strawberry. All the others Robbie is bala and have a spotted lava strawberries in all. The next thing we want to talk about is forest riding. We go out in the woods in Weeks Forest every Friday. can build forts in our clans. Clans, 2 or 3 of them are just our classmates, Kramer, and we build fires and go sledding. Yeah, sometimes we have firemen challenges. We cook and the clans are named after animals that are inside the forest. And ours isn't really in it during this point, but it used to be in this forest and its own lakes. The other clans are a box turtle, black bears, and spike horns. The best thing about 6th grade is forest friendly. Oval, Saba Scrabble, Baba and Baba.
And because some of the sound I know is difficult to hear, we will be posting this video on the town website, so you all can go check it out anytime. And our hope is to share it with the entire school district to promote our school and to share with everyone else what's going on here in Guilford. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. And I know that Sean's here. I don't see Kelly, but if there are questions for the school board versus the leadership council, I know Sean would be happy to answer questions as well.
So this is awesome. Sheila Morse, Melody Hill. I think I've said it enough times today. First of all, I think it's great that you all did this leadership council. I think it's so impressive. Secondly, I love the presentation, the slideshow thing. I want to say something about that in a minute. The school film is amazing. Like just sitting here laughing and appreciating the kids, and the special language is just thrilling. And so I think I hope it's on the Facebook page and a link on Front Porch Forum and on the town website and wherever you can get it, just so that people see it. I wanted to ask you a question about the presentation and coordinating with the Planning Commission on the next 8-year town plan, which we have to approve really soon. And I noticed that you have a lot of goals there that represent either things you're striving towards immediately and maybe also aspirational over the next 8 years. But I also liked the background about what's happened most recently in education and how the town is responding and how parents and kids are responding. And I think that would provide a really good introduction in updating the education section of the town plan, and then looking forward to where we want to see Guilford's community and the role that the school plays in bringing this community together, expanding our community. I just am hoping that you sort of integrate real quickly with what's going on with the town plan. So.
Yeah, we have been in touch with them. I know John provided some feedback, and I think Jethro's planning to come to our next meeting so that he can see firsthand what's going on and we can help to draft something up.
I'm Veranda Porsche from Packer Corners, which I forgot to mention all throughout the select board meeting. It was so rewarding to come and be in the school and talk to the 5th grade about the select board, and then to see how the school stepped up to help out with our town meeting day sort of at the last minute. The select board has sort of authorized us to have a kind of subcommittee on town meeting day, so that maybe we can work with the leadership, council, and anybody else who wants to about just planning in a gracious and easy manner, about how to do next year's town meeting, and also just to look for more opportunities for us to be with the kids in the school and the kids in the school to be researchers and helpers with us. I mean, when Linda was talking about the emerald ash tree borers, I was thinking about what great researchers the kids are. The kids from Guilford live all over town, and that they could help map out who burns wood, support the Conservation Commission, all of that. It's just, it feels like a real return to something that, and a building further on it. That's so great. So thanks.
Thank you. Stacy. 1, 2. There we go. There we go. Laura Lewis, Melody Hill. 2 things. One, I'd like to have a public thank you to the 3rd grade each year who come out in the spring to Christ Church Cemetery and help put the flags out for the summer and fall and help tidy up, and then in the fall come back to take all the flags in and help tidy up for that. And they find relatives that are there and ask questions, and we learn about Christ Church a little bit, and they're a huge help, so that's great. Something one of you said made me a little question. If you want these days with the unified system to do any kind of work, like on the roof or build anything new, do you have to go to the whole big school unified board to get permission to do that? I don't like that. Thank you.
Rick Zamore, Ashworth Road. It sounds like the pre-K is a huge success and a real turning point for the school. Maybe not a turning point, but, and I would just, you mentioned you could have a second pre-K class, and you know what, that'd be great. I mean, it's a good investment. If it's affordable, it'd be a great thing to see, just because it's such an important age, and it's done so much for the school. And you know, we need those students.
Can't see well and can't hear well. There's a young woman up there bouncing, and she has something on the front of her. And would you please tell me what that is? And what age and what sex, let's say?
It's the future.
You won't tell me? Oh, bless your heart. Bless your heart. Look at those feet.
Look at this head. Look at this head.
Hey, you know something? It's real.
It is real. He feels real.
He's sound asleep.
Mostly. Thinking about it.
Do you know him? Is he yours? Well, I don't know. Thank you.
Evelyn McLean, Packer Corners Road. Just because we forgot to do it before, I wanted to thank all the kids who helped in the hallways, the kids who helped with lunch, and who helped with the microphones. They all did a fabulous job, and it makes us real proud of our school students.
Steve Lemke, River Road. I mentioned this at town meeting. I think the video is great, and I think it's great that everybody in town gets to see it. I would also share it with the Vermont Tourism Board and others, because I'm back to this aging thing again. We need to get people into the state, and I'm also the Guilford rep for the Wyndham Regional Commission, and we had a presentation done there that the 2 most important things for people who are looking to move to a state are open spaces, and I thought it would be schools first, but I think it's open spaces and places for families to walk and enjoy the area, and second is schools. So when you look at this, and you see all the open spaces, you see the forest, it's a subtle way to bring people into the state. And again, as Sarah Coffey said, it's another subtle way to shine a light on what's going on in the southern part of Vermont, in particular Guilford. So I think the more we share, sort of humbly, but share what's going on down here, the more we get as far as funding, attention, and other things. So I would say don't hide your light under a basket. Share it widely.
My name is Huxley Dove, and I want to thank first grade.
Lucy Sparblase, Guilford, right, East Mountain Road. I was wondering, I remember last year at town meeting, they said we had the numbers for a second pre-K classroom. Why don't we have that on the ballot?
It's very expensive. And so there's two components. There's the space component, which we could work through, but there's also the cost component. So I think it's something that we will now need to bring up to the school board and give them the statistics that we have. And ultimately that will be a decision that they will make with us advocating. So in closing, I think what we were attempting to achieve today was to show you that our strong academic performance at this school is really a result of the really cool programs that the kids highlighted, and that we are able to get outside and do programmatic theme-based education, and it yields results. And we're being recognized for that, which is really important and is not necessarily commonplace even within our district. So we stand out, I think, and it's something that we want to continue to promote throughout the district. And the other thing that's noteworthy is over the last few years, there's been a lot of this talk about Act 46, and it's been a bit contentious. And I think Guilford is a shining example of how, despite all of that, here we are, and we're making the best of it, and we're all coming together and continuing to advocate for our school. And being the first leadership council to be formed and to be the most robust leadership council in the district is very telling, and I think it speaks well for our future. So that's it.